But right now, from TFC, a guy who had a strong, solid season in 2014, joining us is Mark Bloom. Mark, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Pleasure to have you on. Mark, let me tell you something. A high compliment paid to you just before you came on by former TFC first-year player Mark Oretta. When I said you were coming on, he used two words: steady, consistent. That's Mark Bloom. Let's talk about that, Mark. You were steady, you were consistent, you weren't flashy, you go about your business, you put your hard hat on. What do you attribute that to? Is that a coach or two that really instilled that work ethic in you?
I think that's sort of something that's stuck with me my whole life. There's nothing better than a consistent player. The coach knows what he's going to get game in, game out. You know, every team needs that. Every coach wants that. And that's sort of the way I play. I've never been a flashy player, just a hardworking guy trying to do my job. And so each and every game, you know, that's what I strive to do, is just get my job done and help the guys around me, and hopefully it's good enough for the win.
Mark, what do you want to attain more this year that maybe you didn't achieve last year? Is it more of, you know, maybe helping out a little bit more offensively? Is it more of being consistent when it comes to the late stages of a game where, unfortunately, again, last year you guys gave up some crucial goals? What do you want to make sure that in 2015 doesn't happen as it did in 2014 for you and for the team?
For the team, first and foremost, just the putting together a full 90 minutes. As you said, there are plenty of games this year where maybe we switched off for, you know, 10, 15 minutes, and that'll cost you 2 goals or something. That'll drop you points, whether it's a win that turns into a tie, or maybe you could have gotten a tie, it turns into a loss, and those are crucial points that maybe you don't think matter at the beginning of the season, but especially seeing the playoff picture this year, we missed out by a few points. You know, that's the difference between playoffs and going home early.
Mark, you're going to start on the road for a number of games this season with the renovations going on at BMO Field. Obviously, this is going to be a crucial time for you and the whole team to really bond, to get some wins on that road and to come back to a nice long stretch in the newly renovated field. How important is that you guys really understand and focus on this massive, massive challenge to start the season, that you guys really try to get a couple wins and be consistent?
Well, like I said, it's crucial to start the season well, to build a good base of points. And obviously being on the road for so long is definitely a challenge, but I feel that with the kind of characters that we have on the team, you know, it's going to enhance the concentration level. And I think, you know, last year we did well on the road. I think we did better on the road than at home. So we're no strangers to being on the road and doing well on the road. So I think if we can have a strong outing there, we come home with momentum, and then we go from there.
Mark, a nice mix of veterans on this team and youngsters. Nick Haglin, Chris Manella, and then you've got the veterans, the leaders like Caldwell, Bradley, and the new guys, Altidore, Jovinko. The pressure is on more now, I believe, Mark, than ever on this squad and on this team to get to the playoffs. Do you believe, Mark, with this mix of youngsters and veterans, that they understand the responsibility of getting this team into the playoffs, not just for themselves, but wearing that jersey and for the supporters that have gone through so much anguish in the years of this franchise since day one?
Absolutely. We're all aware of the history of TFC. We know the sort of culture that we're trying to instill now. You know, maybe some decisions in the past weren't correct, but now they're making strides to becoming you know, that team that people look to every year. And we understand the pressure, but we see it as a good thing. You know, if the pressure is not there, then, you know, what's the point? So we're playing to be the best team, and we're playing to win.
Mark, it's got to be outstanding to see this league grow in leaps and bounds. Orlando coming in, New York City FC coming in, Atlanta not too far behind, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be possibly a franchise in Minnesota, and who knows, maybe in Sacramento. This has got to be great for an American young player like yourself, but also Canadian players, that the game is exploding right now in North America. Talk about it.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. You talk to people now, you tell them now that you're playing in the MLS, they actually understand it, they watch it. They talk about watching the national team. They talk about watching the World Cup, and kids are starting to grow up idolizing guys in the MLS and wanting to be like them and wanting to eventually play in the MLS. So it's becoming a dream for kids to play in the MLS, where for me growing up, the MLS was there, but it was never something that you could consistently see on TV. You didn't really know what was going on with the league, but now it's definitely something that you have to consider, and it's growing, and it's just going to get bigger.
Mark, a couple years ago I spoke with Tony DiCecco, a USA women's national coach, and won a World Cup. And I also spoke to Bruce Arena. And you can sense the culture, the change in both the men's and women's game in the US of A. And I said this, and I'd like to get your opinion. I said this about 4 years ago, and I still believe it, that I truly believe within the next World Cup or two, whether Qatar or whether Russia, that the USA, men's USA team will be in a Final Four. Maybe not win it or get to the final, but to a Final Four. Do you believe now, finally, that U.S. American-born players can dream and say, hey, we've got just as good a shot as anyone, watching what they did in Brazil?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the performance they put in Brazil, but not just Brazil, the past few World Cup performances. We've been getting out of the group. Not only qualifying every year, but we're getting out of the group. And, now it's just building on that, and you see that. That's the way we're progressing, and yeah, you get a sense that we're growing, we're maturing as a team, and now our sights are set on winning the World Cup, not just being a part of it.
And that's great to hear. And if I'm not mistaken, they're getting ready to play a friendly against Chile. I think it's already started or might be underway in a little bit. And to me, something that I'd like to get your thoughts on as well as this, Mark. In Canada, I follow the game closely. I've worked in it. I'm at the grassroots level. And something still that bothers me, and I've talked to many coaches all over the USA, pro coaches, university and youth coaches. There's still no identity of the U.S. game or the Canadian game. When we go to Italy, we know the style of play they want. Spain, Germany, on and on. But there's no identity in the U.S. game or the Canadian game. Do you believe that is important to come from Benito Floro as Canada's coach and Jurgen Klinsmann, that they start to build this identity and that youth coaches all across their countries need to develop?
For sure, and that's a trend that I see among my friends watching the game. You see us play, and we'll put together a couple good passes, a couple good plays, but overall there's no set way that we play. And a lot of it, what I hear is just, it's hard work, we have heart. That's sort of our strategy right now, but it's getting to a point where we need to have a certain identity, a certain style of play, because we're good enough to do it. And like you said, we're actually playing Chile right now in the 32nd minute. We're 2-1 up, so that's pretty good, with Altidore scoring the second goal.
Well, there you go. That's great news for TFC fans. I'm doing my show, so I wasn't able to catch that, but that's great news. In Chile, as we saw in the last World Cup, I got to tell you, if they didn't lose to Brazil, I thought they were going to go all the way to the final and win it all. They've got a fantastic team. That's great news hearing that, Mark. Mark, just before we let you go, just a couple other quick things. Obviously, head coach Greg Vanney taking over this year. What does he expect from you? Has he defined what he wants to see from you, or is he happy from what he saw from you last year?
We haven't spoken individually, but you can tell that they're not messing around this preseason. They have a culture that they want to instill. They come from backgrounds of a winning background, from their playing days, the whole coaching staff, and so they're implementing what they have seen work into our system, and I think that guys are really responding well to it. It's a culture of hard work, dedication, making the guy next to you better. And so, we're getting better every training session, and there's a purpose behind everything we're doing. So it's really looking good.
Mark, I'm born and raised here in Toronto, Canada. I'm a parent of 2 boys, and my parents immigrated from Italy 50 years ago. And I said this since day one here in the city of Toronto. The largest Italian population outside of Italy. I never understood why, and I kept on yelling and screaming at every media scrum I could get at any TFC GM. Why not sign an Italian? You will see the reaction on the field and off the field in this community. Have you been surprised? Have you been unbelievably, taken aback at the response of Giovinco coming here to Toronto?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely see it, and it's not just the Italians. I mean, you bring in a player of that quality, it's going to get every fan off their seat, And that's a signing that it's a guy who's, he's in his prime. He's playing in the top league. He's playing for the Italian national team. He's a guy that can come in and change the perception of the whole league.
Yeah, and I agree with that totally, Mark. But the only thing that bothers me about a lot of these great players that are coming over here to MLS, and that's fantastic. It's guys like you and other guys around the league. We had on Kyle Becker last night from FC Dallas, a former teammate of yours. And guys like that, it bothers me that they're just getting by with a real small salary. And I think it's time that MLS and the players in MLS go hard this time in the CBA and say, hey, enough is enough. Give us enough to live on, not to go to McDonald's, but once in a while, take our wife and our family to a nice restaurant and not have to worry about, the pennies that we're earning here. Where do you stand on that?
Absolutely, and that's something that we're definitely fighting for in the CBA, because you see the DPs getting paid well, but they're only max three players on a team, and then the rest of the guys like myself, we're who really make up the whole league. And so you look at it and we're what make the league run. So of course we're not asking for anything ridiculous, but we're asking for something fair, and I think every player around the league stands united on that point. So I think we're going to stand firm when it comes to these CBA negotiations. Last
thing is this, and then we'll let you go, Mark. We really appreciate your time, but I can't let you go without talking about a special day in Canada, an important day in Canada, and it is Bell Let's Talk, dealing with mental health issues. Your background, I'm pretty sure you have a very strong faith, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but you have the Christian faith, Mark, and you understand how hard it is to deal with people that are having mental health issues, and it is so important that we talk to them. You're a professional player, Mark, and it's hard to show in that locker room because you've got to show that machoism, you got to show that brick wall, that steel face of a player. But what would you say, Mark, to a young player out there that might be struggling, that doesn't have anyone to speak to?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, soccer is great, and it's important. It's such a big thing in our lives, but really that's not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is helping others, doing what's right, and serving those who are in need. So anybody struggling with anything, we're there to reach out, to help out. Anyone who can help should help, and I think that's what life's really about. It's not about being selfish. It's about using your gifts to help other people, and that's what I'm about, and I've seen it across the league and the world, and that's what makes the world run.
Well, you're a class act. God bless you, Mark. Continued success in 2015 to you on the field, but also off the field, to you and your family. You're a guy that a lot of people in these parts are really happy to have here in the city of Toronto. So once again, Mark, good luck to you and all of TFC this year in 2015, my friend.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you having me. God bless.
God bless. That is Mark Bloom, a class act not only on the field but off the field. He said it. We love the game of soccer. We all enjoy it. Mark enjoys playing it, earning as a living. I enjoy talking about it.